The stagecoach lurched violently, throwing Clara Whitmore against the hard wooden side panel. She clutched her worn leather valise tighter. The only possession that mattered now inside were her teaching certificate, a daguerreotype of her late mother, and the torn pieces of a wedding announcement she'd shredded 3 months ago in New York. "Sorry, miss," the driver called down. "Road's rougher than a coyote's tongue out here." Clara forced a tight smile, though no one could see it beneath the dust-caked veil she wore. The other passengers, 2 cavalry soldiers and a merchant heading to Fort Defiance, had long since given up conversation. The Arizona Territory didn't encourage small talk. It demanded survival. The landscape rolled past in waves of red rock and sparse vegetation. Saguaro cacti stood like ancient sentinels, their arms raised in perpetual surrender to the merciless sun. Clara had read about the desert's beauty in Harper's Weekly, but the illustrations hadn't captured its terrifying indifference. This land didn't care about broken engagements or society scandals. It didn't whisper behind fans about how Theodore Ashford had left her standing at Grace Church's altar for the banker's daughter with the larger dowry. "How much farther to the fort?" she asked, her throat parched despite the water she'd rationed carefully. 2 days, if the Apache don't cause trouble," one soldier replied. Shifting his rifle, he was young, maybe 20, with sunburned cheeks that hadn't yet grown accustomed to the territorial sun. "Though they've been quiet lately. Too quiet. Sergeant says." The older soldier, a grizzled man with eyes that had seen too much, spat tobacco juice out the window. "Quiet just means they're planning something. Private Morrison, you'll learn." Clara touched the cameo at her throat. Her mother's last gift. "I'm sure the fort is well protected." "Fort's safe enough," the sergeant agreed. "It's the getting there that tests a body." As if the desert itself had been listening. The attack came at sunset. Clara first noticed the driver tensing, his whip cracking more urgently. Then came the war cries high, ululating sounds that turned her blood to ice water. "Bandits!" the driver screamed. "White bandits dressed as Apache!" The distinction mattered little as bullets splintered the coach's wooden frame. Private Morrison pushed Clara to the floor. "Stay down, miss." She pressed herself against the dirty boards, tasting dust and fear. The world exploded in gunfire and shouts. The coach careened wildly, then tilted. Clara heard the horses scream a sound that would haunt her dreams before everything turned upside down. When she came to, the silence was worse than the chaos. She lay half beneath the overturned coach, her dress torn and bloody, though she couldn't tell if the blood was hers. Crawling out, she surveyed the carnage. The soldiers lay still, their blue uniforms dark with spreading stains. The merchant had been thrown clear, his neck at an impossible angle. The driver was nowhere to be seen. "Hello," her voice cracked. "Is anyone—" Nothing answered but the wind. The bandits had taken the horses, the strongbox, anything of value. They'd left her because they thought her dead, or perhaps because a woman alone in the desert was as good as dead anyway. Clara stood on shaking legs. The sun was setting, painting the rocks the color of dried blood. She had no water, the canteens were gone, no food, no weapons save for a small derringer in her valise, which miraculously remained trapped beneath the coach. She retrieved it with trembling fingers. "Think," she commanded herself. "You're educated. You survived Theodore's betrayal and New York society's mockery. You can survive this." But the desert laughed at her logic. By nightfall, the temperature plummeted. She huddled against the coach's wreckage, wrapped in a dead soldier's coat, trying not to think about the corpses attracting scavengers. Coyotes howled in the distance, or were they wolves? The astronomy lessons from Miss Pemberton's academy seemed useless now. The stars offered no comfort, only vast indifference. Dawn came like a fever. Clara forced herself to walk, choosing west because Fort Defiance lay that direction. She thought direction meant little when every mesa looked identical, every canyon a mirror of the last. The sun climbed mercilessly. Her proper Eastern boots, suitable for New York's cobblestones, split at the seams. Blood seeped through her stockings. Water, everything reduced to that single need. Her lips cracked. Her tongue swelled. She'd read about desert survival in preparation for her journey, but books couldn't convey the way thirst became a living thing, clawing at your throat. By the second day, she'd stopped walking in straight lines. The desert floor wavered like water-cruel mirages that vanished when she stumbled toward them. Her parasol had broken miles back. The sun beat through her dress as if the fabric didn't exist. "Please," she whispered to no one. To God, perhaps, though he seemed as distant as the life she'd fled. "I didn't come this far to die." But she was dying. The knowledge came peacefully. Almost a relief. She'd escaped one kind of death in New York, the slow suffocation of scandal and spinsterhood, only to find a quicker one here. There was something almost poetic about it. Theodore would read about it in the papers. Former fiancé perishes in Western misadventure. Would he feel guilt? Unlikely. A saguaro offered minimal shade. Clara collapsed beneath it, her back against its ridged skin. Thorns pricked through her dress, but pain had become abstract. She closed her eyes, thinking of her mother's garden in Connecticut. Roses and larkspur, the smell of rain on summer earth. "I'm sorry, Mother," she murmured. "I tried to be brave." The saguaro's shadow grew longer. Clara drifted between consciousness and dreams. She was back at Grace Church, but the pews were filled with cacti. Theodore stood at the altar with a skeleton bride. Her mother played the organ, though her fingers were dust. Through the delirium came a sound horse's hooves on stone. Clara tried to call out, but her voice was gone. "Let it be the cavalry," she prayed. "Let it be anyone but more bandits." The hoofbeats stopped. Footsteps approached, soft as a stalking cat. Clara forced her eyes open and found herself staring at moccasins. Her gaze traveled upward deerskin leggings, a breechcloth, a bare chest marked with scars, and finally, a face that belonged to no cavalry soldier. The Apache warrior studied her with eyes dark as desert midnight. His hair fell past his shoulders, held back by a leather band. War paint or tattoos she couldn't tell marked his cheeks. Everything she'd been warned about, every terrifying story from the journey west, stood before her in flesh and sinew. Clara tried to reach for the derringer, but her hand wouldn't obey. The warrior said something in a language that sounded like wind through stone. When she didn't respond, he knelt beside her, movements fluid as water. She flinched when he touched her face, but his fingers were surprisingly gentle, turning her chin to examine her sun-ravaged skin. He pressed a hand to her forehead, then spoke again, urgency coloring the foreign words. From a pouch at his side, he produced a water skin. Clara's eyes fixed on it with animal desperation. He supported her head, letting a few drops fall on her cracked lips. The water tasted of leather and herbs, but it was life itself. She grabbed for the skin, but he pulled it back, shaking his head. Too much too fast would kill her even in her delirium. She understood. The warrior studied her torn dress, her bloody feet, the general disaster of her appearance. His expression was unreadable. Would he kill her? Take her captive, the stories said. Apache did terrible things to white women, but the stories also said they were mindless savages. The intelligence in this man's eyes suggested otherwise. He stood abruptly, and Clara's heart sank. He was leaving her to die after all. But instead, he moved to his horse, a painted pony that waited with unusual patience, and returned with a blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders, then scooped her up as if she weighed nothing. "No," she croaked, though she lacked strength to resist. "Please." He said something that might have been reassurance or warning. Clara's head lolled against his chest. He smelled of smoke and sage, horse and earth, foreign but not unpleasant. His arms were steady, and after days of staggering through hell, being carried felt like floating. The pony accepted her weight without complaint. The warrior mounted behind her, one arm securing her against him. Clara wanted to protest, to maintain some dignity, but consciousness was slipping away. The last thing she saw was the saguaro that had sheltered her, standing solitary against the endless sky. As darkness claimed her, one thought persisted: she'd fled civilization's cruelties only to fall into the hands of those civilization called savage. The irony would have made her laugh if she'd had any laughter left. The desert swallowed them whole. And Clara Whitmore, once of New York society, jilted bride, would-be schoolteacher, surrendered to whatever fate the Apache warrior intended. It couldn't be worse than the death she'd been facing. And if it was, well, at least it would be a different kind of ending than the one Theodore had written for her. The pony's steady gait rocked her like a cradle. Stars emerged one by one, ancient witnesses to another small human drama in the vast theatrical of the American West. Somewhere, a coyote howled. Somewhere else, Clara's old life continued without her. But here, now, she existed in a space between worlds, carried by a stranger whose kindness or cruelty remained unknown, toward a future as mysterious as the desert night. Clara drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of movement and the steady heartbeat against her back. Sometimes she felt water on her lips, tasting of herbs that made her throat tingle. Other times, cool cloths pressed against her burning skin. Voices spoke in that liquid language she couldn't understand, rising and falling like creek water over stones. When she finally woke fully, she lay on soft furs inside what appeared to be a traditional dwelling made of bent saplings and hides. Smoke escaped through a hole above, carrying the scent of burning mesquite. Her ruined dress had been replaced with a simple shift of soft doeskin that covered her modestly from neck to ankle. "You wake." Clara jerked toward the voice. A woman sat near the entrance, grinding something in a stone bowl. She was perhaps 40, with silver threading through her black hair and eyes that held both wariness and intelligence. "You speak English?" Clara's voice came out as a croak. The woman nodded slightly. "Some. Learned from mission school. Long ago." She gestured to a water gourd beside Clara's bedding. "Drink slow." Clara obeyed, her hands trembling as she lifted the vessel. The water was cool, flavored with something minty. "Where am I?" "Safe." The woman returned to her grinding. "My son found you, dying under grandfather cactus." "Your son." Clara's memory supplied the image of the warrior who'd carried her. "He saved my life." "Maybe, maybe not. Some here say better to let desert take you." The woman's tone held no malice, just frank assessment. "White soldiers come, always bring trouble. I'm not a soldier. I'm a teacher. Was going to Fort Defiance to teach children." This earned her a sharp look. Teach Apache children to forget Apache ways, make them white inside. "No, Clara stopped. What did she know of these people's experiences with Eastern education? "I just wanted to start over. Someone I was supposed to marry chose someone else. I couldn't stay where everyone knew my shame." The woman studied her for a long moment. "Man chooses another woman. You have shame, should be his shame." Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "That's not how it works where I come from." "Then your people are foolish." The woman rose, bowl in hand. "I am called Sage Flower in your tongue. My Apache name you could not say. Rest now. When stronger, we see what to do with you." But rest proved impossible. Through the dwelling's hide walls, Clara heard raised voices, men arguing, though she couldn't understand the words. One voice she recognized deeper than the others, authoritative yet somehow defensive, her rescuer. Sage Flower returned as sunset painted the hide walls orange. This time she brought 2 companions, an elderly woman with a face mapped by years and a younger one whose beauty was marred by the hostility in her eyes. This is Grandmother Crow. Sage Flower indicated the elder. She decides if you stay or go. Grandmother Crow circled Clara like a buyer examining goods. She lifted Clara's hair, peered at her teeth, prodded her arms. All the while, she spoke in Apache, her tone clinical. She says you are weak but not sick weak, son weak. Will heal if given time. Sage Flower translated. But time is problem. Every day you hear, danger grows. I'll leave as soon as I can walk. Clara promised. Just point me toward Fort Defiance. The younger woman laughed, harsh as a crow's call. She spoke rapidly, gesturing dismissively. Dancing Doe says you would not last one day. Sage Flower translated, though Clara suspected she softened the words. Desert already tried to claim you once. It does not give up easy. Then what am I supposed to do? Before anyone could answer, the hide door pushed aside. The warrior who'd saved her entered, and the small space suddenly felt smaller. He'd washed off the dust of travel, and Clara could see him more clearly. Strong features, a scar along his jaw, and those dark eyes that seemed to see through to her soul. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30 winters. He spoke directly to Grandmother Crow, his tone respectful but firm. The old woman responded sharply. Back and forth they went, with Sage Flower and Dancing Doe adding their voices. Clara caught her name Clara, mixed into the Apache words, standing out like a stone in a stream. Finally, Grandmother Crow made a slashing gesture. The argument stopped. She spoke what sounded like a pronouncement, then swept out of the dwelling. Dancing Doe followed, but not before shooting Clara a look that needed no translation. The warrior remained, speaking quietly to his mother. Sage Flower sighed, then turned to Clara. My son is called Joseph by the whites. His father was a captured Mexican who taught him some Spanish, some English before he died. His Apache name means hunts the storm. But, she shrugged, names have power. Better you use simple one. Joseph. It seemed too ordinary for the man who'd pulled her from death's embrace. He spoke directly to Clara for the first time, his English heavily accented but clear. You cannot go to Fort, cannot stay here. This is problem. I don't want to cause trouble, Clara said. If someone could just guide me part of the way. You do not understand. He squatted beside her, bringing them to eye level. Soldiers search for you. They find you here. They attack. Say we stole you. Many die. Maybe you too. Clara's stomach dropped. Of course. White woman missing. Apache blamed. The story wrote itself. But surely if I explained, your word against fear. Fear always wins. His jaw tightened. I know this. Watched soldiers kill my father because white woman said he looked at her wrong. He was bringing her horses she paid for. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. Past is past. Present is problem. He stood. Council meets tonight. Decides your fate. After they left, Clara lay in the gathering darkness, mind racing. She'd fled one impossible situation only to create another. These people had shown her kindness, saved her life, and now her presence endangered them. Through the hide walls, she heard the camp settling into evening routines. Children laughed. A baby cried and was quickly soothed. Normal sounds of life that tomorrow might be shattered because of her. The council convened around a central fire. Clara watched through a gap in the hide, though Sage Flower had warned her to stay hidden. Men sat in an inner circle, women behind them. Joseph stood to one side. Apparently the subject of debate couldn't participate directly. An elder spoke at length, gesturing frequently toward her dwelling. Others responded, some nodding, others clearly agitated. One warrior, younger than Joseph with cruel features, spoke vehemently. He pointed at Joseph, then at Clara's dwelling. His meaning clear, Joseph had brought danger to them all. The debate continued for hours. Clara's legs cramped from crouching, but she couldn't look away. Her life hung in the balance, decided by strangers in a language she couldn't comprehend. Finally, a woman stepped forward. Unlike the others, she wore elaborate beadwork and carried herself with unmistakable authority. The men fell silent. Whoever she was commanded respect. She spoke directly to Joseph, then to the cruel-featured warrior, then addressed the entire assembly. When she finished, a hush fell over the gathering. The chief, for surely that's what the eldest man was, nodded slowly. He spoke what sounded like a judgment, and the council began to disperse. Joseph appeared at her dwelling soon after, sage flower beside him. Their faces told Clara the news wasn't good. "What did they decide?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. Sage flower spoke first. "The grandmother, she who leads the women's council, has spoken a path, old path, not used in many seasons." "I don't understand." Joseph's jaw worked as if the words fought him. "You stayed in my dwelling. I carried you here, by old law. This means connection, responsibility. She's saying you must marry my son," Sage Flower stated bluntly, "or leave at dawn, alone, no water, no guide." Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "Marry? But we don't even know each other." "Is knowing needed?" Sage Flower asked. "You knew man who shamed you. Did knowing help?" "Marriage or death." Clara laughed, edge of hysteria creeping in. "Those are my choices." "Marriage protects you, makes you Apache, not white captive. Soldiers cannot take Apache wife without cause great trouble." Joseph's voice held no emotion. "Also protects tribe. No one can say we hold you against will if you are proper wife. And if I refuse, then you walk into desert. Maybe you find fort, maybe desert finds you first." He shrugged. "Your choice, but choose tonight. Dawn comes quick." They left her alone with impossible decision. Clara hugged her knees, rocking slightly. 6 months ago, she'd been planning wedding flowers and guest lists with Theodore. Now, an Apache warrior she'd known for days offered marriage or abandonment. The pragmatic part of her, the part that had survived social ruin, evaluated options. Death in the desert seemed certain, even if she somehow reached Fort Defiance. What then? A teaching position? Yes, but also life as a curiosity. The woman who lived with savages. The stories would follow her. But marriage to Joseph? She knew nothing of Apache marriage customs. Would he expect wifely duties? The thought brought heat to her cheeks. He was handsome in a foreign way. She couldn't deny that. His hands had been gentle when he saved her. But marriage? Through the dwelling smoke hole, stars appeared one by one, the same stars that had witnessed her humiliation at Grace Church. Perhaps there was strange justice in this, jilted by civilization, claimed by wilderness. A scratch at the entrance made her look up. A small face peered in a boy of perhaps 7 with Joseph's eyes. "You, the white woman?" he asked in careful English. "Yes." He entered uninvited and sat cross-legged before her. "I am Samuel. My father saved you." "Your father?" Clara studied the child with new interest. "Where is your mother?" "Dead. 2 winters now. Sickness the traders brought." His matter-of-fact tone made it worse. "Father says you might be new mother. I would like that. Sage Flower tries. But she is grandmother, not mother." "Samuel, it's not that simple." "Is because I am half," the boy interrupted. "My mother was Mexican captive, like you, but she learned to be happy. Father was good to her." Before Clara could respond, Joseph appeared, scolding in Apache. The boy scampered out, but not before flashing Clara a gap-toothed grin. "Apologize for my son. He's curious about you." "He's beautiful," Clara said honestly. "You must miss his mother." Something shifted in Joseph's expression. Maria was good woman, taken in raid, but made peace with new life, found happiness where planted. He paused. Like desert flower, blooms where seems impossible. Are you saying I should do the same? I say nothing. Choice is yours. But Clara, her name sounded different in his accent, softer. If you choose marriage, I will not be cruel. This I promise. Apache men who beat wives are considered weak, and I am not. Not what? Not Theodore. That he knew the name hit like cold water. Of course she'd been delirious. Must have rambled. No, you're not. She stood, decision crystallizing. If I agree, what happens? Tomorrow. Ceremony, simple. Exchange of gifts. Words before tribe. Then you are my wife, protected by Apache law. And Fort Defiance, my teaching position. Gone. That life ends. This one begins. Clara thought of her trunk of books, probably scavenged by now. Her plans, evaporating like morning dew. But also Theodore's betrayal, society's whispers, everything that had driven her west. One condition, she said. Samuel mentioned his mother was Mexican, that she was taken in a raid. I won't be a captive wife. If I agree, it's as equals, partners. Joseph studied her long enough that she wondered if she'd overstepped. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. It transformed his face, revealing the younger man beneath the warrior. Maria said same thing, almost same words. He extended his hand. Palm up. Equals. Until desert turns green or you ask for freedom. This, I swear. Clara stared at the offered hand. In New York, she'd have needed lawyers, contracts, weeks of negotiation. Here, just a palm waiting for hers. The simplicity felt like vertigo. She placed her hand in his fingers closed gently, calloused but warm. Yes, she said, I'll marry you. The word hung between them, heavy with impossibility. Joseph nodded once, released her hand, and left without another word. Clara sank back onto the furs, trembling with the magnitude of what she'd just agreed to. Tomorrow she would become Clara Hunts the Storm, or would they give her an Apache name? Would she wear doeskin forever, learn their language, birth copper-skinned children who belong to neither world fully? Outside, an owl called, and somewhere a coyote answered. The desert conducting its nightly symphony, indifferent to the small human drama within its borders. Clara pulled the blanket around her shoulders, the same one Joseph had wrapped her in when he found her dying. She'd wanted a new life. The universe, with its cruel sense of humor, had certainly provided one. Whether salvation or simply a different kind of doom remained to be seen. But at least she'd chosen this fate herself. Not had it chosen for her by a faithless man or the inexorable rules of society. That would have to be enough. Dawn came too soon, bringing with it the weight of Clara's promise. Sage Flower arrived early with 2 other women, carrying items Clara couldn't identify in the dim light. They worked silently, their hands efficient as they prepared her for a ceremony she didn't understand. Must wash away old life. Sage Flower explained, leading Clara to a secluded spot by the creek. The water was shockingly cold, but Clara submitted to the ritual cleansing without complaint. The women scrubbed her with rough plant fibers until her skin tingled, then rubbed her with sage and other herbs that made her smell of earth and growing things. Back in the dwelling, they dressed her in the finest doeskin she'd yet seen, soft as butter, decorated with intricate beadwork. The dress fell to her ankles, modest by any standard, with long sleeves that ended in fringe. They braided her hair in the Apache style, weaving in feathers and small silver ornaments that chimed softly when she moved. You look almost proper woman now, Dancing Doe said in broken English. Her first direct words to Clara. The hostility remained, but something else flickered there too, perhaps resignation. What happens next? Clara asked, fighting the tremor in her voice. You give gift to Joseph, he gives gift to you. Words are spoken, then feast. Sage Flower adjusted the dress's neckline. Simple, not like white ceremony with many words that mean nothing. What kind of gift? I have nothing. Sage Flower produced Clara's water-damaged valise. This survived, something inside forgiving. Clara opened it with trembling fingers. Her teaching certificate ruined, the daguerreotype of her mother miraculously intact. And there, wrapped in oilcloth, the small leather journal she'd meant to record her Western adventures in. Its pages were blank, waiting for a story she'd never imagined. This, she held up the daguerreotype. It's my mother. She died when I was 15. The women exchanged glances. Good gift, Grandmother Crow said. Entering the dwelling, she spoke at length in Apache, which Sage Flower translated. Man who receives image of wife's mother accepts her family as his own. Says he will honor those who came before. Very good gift. Outside, the camp buzzed with activity. Clara caught glimpses through the hide walls, people gathering, fires being stoked, the normal morning routine set aside for something special. Her stomach churned. In New York, she'd had months to prepare for her wedding, endless fittings and decisions. Here, she'd had one night. Time. Sage Flower announced. They led her to the central clearing where the council had met. The entire band had gathered perhaps 60 people. From elders leaning on walking sticks to babies in cradle boards. Clara's eyes found Joseph immediately. He stood with the other men, wearing his finest clothing, a shirt decorated with elk teeth, leggings with geometric patterns, his hair freshly braided with an eagle feather hanging down. Samuel stood beside him, practically vibrating with excitement. The boy waved when he saw her, earning a gentle cuff from his father. The chief, who Sage Flower identified as Thunder Eagle, raised his hand for silence. He spoke in Apache, his voice carrying across the clearing, though Clara understood nothing. She heard her name and Joseph's Apache name woven through the words. Joseph stepped forward. In his hands, he carried something wrapped in deer hide. He spoke in Apache first, then switched to English, his voice carrying clearly. Clara Whitmore, you come to us from far lands, brought by desert and fate. I offer you place by my fire, food from my hunt, protection of my strength. This gift speaks my promise. He unwrapped the bundle, revealing a necklace of silver discs and turquoise beads, beautiful in its simplicity. His hands were steady as he placed it around her neck, though Clara noticed the slight tremor in his fingers as they brushed her skin. Her turn. Clara stepped forward on unsteady legs. The daguerreotype clutched in her hands. The English words she'd rehearsed fled. Instead, she spoke from her heart. Joseph hunts the storm. You saved my life when the desert tried to claim me. You offer me a new life when my old one lies broken. She placed the daguerreotype in his hands. This is my mother, Sarah Whitmore. She was brave and kind. I give her to your keeping, and myself as well. I promise to learn your ways, to be a good mother to Samuel, to bring no shame to your fire. Joseph studied the image with surprising tenderness, then showed it to Samuel, who gazed at it with wide eyes. Thunder Eagle spoke again, and the crowd responded with what sounded like approval. Now the binding, Sage Flower whispered. A woman Clara hadn't met before, elderly but straight-backed, came forward with a white doeskin cord. She wrapped it around Clara and Joseph's joined hands, speaking words that had the cadence of ancient ritual. The cord was soft but somehow felt unbreakable, binding them in ways Clara was only beginning to understand. Thunder Eagle raised his arms, spoke a final pronouncement, and the crowd erupted. Not the restrained applause of a society wedding, but ululating cries, drumming, genuine celebration. Women rushed forward to embrace Clara, chattering in Apache. Children darted between adults' legs. The solemnity dissolved into festival. Now feast, Samuel announced, tugging Clara's hand. You are mother now. Must sit in special place. The feast overwhelmed Clara's senses. Women had been cooking since before dawn venison, rabbit, root vegetables she couldn't identify, bread baked in ground ovens. She sat beside Joseph on a blanket, trying to follow the etiquette she observed. Take what was offered. Eat with appreciation. Smile even when her face hurt from the effort. Joseph remained quiet beside her, but his presence felt solid. Occasionally, he would translate a comment or explain a dish. This is mezcal. Sweet but strong. Eat slow. Or, that woman is my father's sister. She says you have good face for children. How many children are customary? Clara asked, then blushed at her boldness. A smile tugged his lips. Many as the desert gives. Maria and I were blessed with only Samuel, though we hoped. He trailed off, then seemed to shake himself. Apache women have ways to space children. Sage flower will teach you. The implications of all of this hit Clara anew. Tonight, they would share a dwelling as husband and wife. What did he expect? What were the rules? In New York, she'd been given a mortifying talk by Theodore's mother about wifely duties. But this wasn't New York. As if reading her thoughts, Joseph leaned closer. Do not fear. Apache law says woman must be willing, always. I told you I am not cruel man. Relief flooded through her. Thank you. Thanks not needed between husband and wife. Only truth. The celebration continued past noon. Clara's head spun from the strangeness of it all. Men performed a dance that seemed to tell a story, their movements precise and powerful. Women sang, their voices rising and falling in harmonies that raised goosebumps on her arms. Children played games, their laughter universal despite the language barrier. But not everyone celebrated. Clara noticed the cruel-featured warrior from the council Black Wolf. She learned watching from the edges. His supporters clustered near him, their faces dark with resentment. When her eyes met his, he spat deliberately and turned away. Do not mind him, a woman said in accented English. Clara turned to find a pretty Apache woman about her age, belly rounded with pregnancy. I am Morning Star. Was Mexican before. Like Maria. Black Wolf hated her too. Hates anything that changes old ways. How long have you been here? 6 winters, taken in raid, but... Morning Star smiled, touching her belly. Found love. Good man. Swift river. You will see. Apache men different from Mexicans. From whites. They let women be strong. Before Clara could ask more, a commotion arose. A young boy ran into camp, shouting breathlessly. The celebration stopped cold. Men reached for weapons. Women gathered children. Thunder Eagle barked orders. Joseph rose fluid as water. His hand moving to the knife at his belt, he spoke rapidly to Sage Flower, who gripped Clara's arm. What is it? Clara asked, heart hammering. Riders coming. Many could be soldiers. The camp transformed with military efficiency. Warriors took positions. Women and children moved toward predetermined hiding spots. Joseph returned, his face grim. You must decide now, he said urgently. If soldiers, they will want to rescue you. You can go with them. Say you were captive. Marriage means nothing to their law. But I... Decide, his voice cut sharp. No time for thinking. Heart must choose. Stay and be Apache wife, or go and be white woman saved. Hoofbeats thundered closer. Clara could see dust rising above the canyon rim. Her new life, barely hours old, already faced its first test. The necklace Joseph had given her lay heavy on her chest, the turquoise cool against her racing pulse. I stay, she heard herself say. I made promises. Something flashed in Joseph's eyes. Surprise? Approval. He gripped her shoulders briefly. Then you must act as Apache wife. Show no fear. Speak no English unless I say, understand. Clara nodded. He guided her to where the other women clustered, then joined the warriors. Clara found herself pressed between Sage Flower and Morning Star. Samuel clutched against her side. Will there be fighting? The boy whispered. I don't know. Clara answered honestly. But your father will protect us. The riders crested the ridge, blue uniforms stark against red rock. A cavalry patrol, perhaps 20 men. They rode in formation, carbines at ready, clearly expecting trouble. The lead officer, a captain by his stripes, raised his hand, bringing the column to a halt just outside the camp. "I am Captain Marcus Webb." He called out in English. "We seek a white woman taken from a destroyed stagecoach. Return her unharmed, and there will be no consequences." Thunder Eagle stepped forward, Joseph and other warriors flanking him. The old chief spoke in Spanish, a middle ground neither side preferred, but both understood. No white woman here, only Apache. Webb's eyes swept the camp, cataloging faces. They lingered on Clara, taking in her pale skin despite the Apache dress. "That woman there, bring her forward." Clara's mouth went dry. This was the moment claim her old identity or embrace the new. Joseph didn't move, wouldn't look at her. The choice was hers alone. She stepped forward before anyone could stop her. Sage flower hissing a warning. The captain's face lit with righteous purpose. "Ma'am, you're safe now. These savages can't hurt you anymore." Clara met his gaze steadily. Then, in the clearest voice she could manage, she spoke the words Sage Flower had taught her that morning, Apache words that meant, "I am wife of Hunts the Storm." Confusion clouded Webb's features. "Ma'am, you're clearly disturbed. These heathens have Yazi." Clara said firmly the Apache word for no that even Samuel knew. She touched the necklace at her throat, then gestured to Joseph. More Apache words, practiced until her tongue could shape them. "My husband, my choice." "She's been brainwashed," a sergeant muttered. "Or threatened." Webb's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'll need to hear this from the woman herself. In English. Alone." Thunder Eagle translated. The camp held its breath. This was the precipice one wrong word could spark a massacre. Joseph spoke in rapid Apache to Thunder Eagle, then in Spanish to the captain. His message was clear: the woman had spoken. She was his wife by Apache law. To take her would be theft, would break treaties. Apache law means nothing. Webb spat. "She's an American citizen." Clara stepped closer, still clutching Samuel's hand. The boy translated her whispered request, and Morningstar joined them, belly prominent. A visual statement. Apache wives, mothers, family. "Captain," Clara said suddenly in English, drawing all eyes, "my name is Clara Hunts the Storm. This is my son, Samuel. I am no captive. I am wife, mother. Apache by choice. Please go." The captain's face cycled through emotions, disbelief, disgust, confusion. "Ma'am, surely you don't mean, do you understand what you're saying? These are savages, heathens. You'd choose them over civilization." Clara thought of Theodore, of society's rules that crushed women who stepped outside prescribed boundaries, of the teaching position that would always come with whispers, of corsets and calling cards and careful conversations that said nothing. "I understand perfectly," she said. "I choose this." Webb's hand moved to his sidearm. Warriors tensed. Clara felt Samuel press closer, and protective fury surged through her. These soldiers would not orphan another Apache child. Not today. "Captain Webb." A new voice. Calm, but carrying authority. A lieutenant Clara hadn't noticed urged his mount forward. "Sir, regulations are clear. We cannot force a woman who claims to be legally married, not without starting a war." "Legally married?" Webb's voice rose. "By what law?" "By the only law that matters here," the lieutenant said quietly. "Sir, we have our answer. The woman appears unharmed and claims to be here willingly. Our duty is done." For a moment, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Webb wheeled his horse around. "This isn't over," he called to Thunder Eagle. "The territory will hear of this, of white women defiling themselves with savages. He spurred his mount viciously. The patrol followed, though Clara noticed the lieutenant looking back, something like understanding in his gaze, or perhaps pity. The camp remained frozen until the dust settled and hoofbeats faded. Then chaos erupted. Warriors whooped victory cries. Women embraced Clara, chattering excitedly. She'd proven herself, chosen them over her own kind, the wedding gift greater than any possession. Joseph appeared at her side, Samuel between them. He didn't speak, but his hand found hers, squeezing once. For the first time that day, perhaps the first time since Theodore's betrayal, Clara felt something that might have been peace. "Come," Sage Flower said, all business despite the moisture in her eyes. "New wife has much to learn. Fire doesn't tend itself." As the women led her away, Clara looked back at Joseph. He stood with the other warriors, but his eyes followed her, when Samuel tugged his hand, pointing excitedly at his new mother. Joseph smiled that rare, transformative expression. Clara touched the turquoise at her throat. In one day, she'd died and been reborn. Clara Whitmore was gone, left in the desert with her ruined boots and broken dreams. In her place stood someone new, Apache wife, mother to a motherless boy, woman who chose her own path regardless of what civilization deemed proper. The old Clara would have been terrified. This new one? She was curious to see what tomorrow would bring. The wedding feast resumed, but with a new energy. She'd been accepted truly now, proven by choice rather than circumstance. When dancing dough passed, she paused, studying Clara with reassessment. "Maybe you're stronger than you look," she said grudgingly, then moved on before Clara could respond. As afternoon wore toward evening, Clara learned the rhythms of her new life. How to bank a fire properly, where to find the best clay for pottery, which plants healed and which harmed. The women taught eagerly now, no longer suspicious of the outsider but invested in their newest sister's success. And always, she felt Joseph's presence, distant but aware, like the mountains that ringed their valley. Her husband, the word felt foreign on her tongue. Yet when Samuel called her mother in his piping voice, something in her chest expanded to make room for these new identities. The sun set on her first day as Clara hunts the storm. Tomorrow would bring challenges, she had no illusions about that. But tonight, surrounded by the peculiar warmth of her chosen family, she felt something she hadn't experienced since her mother's death. She belonged. The morning after the wedding, Clara woke to find Joseph already gone. His blankets lay neatly folded, and she realized with a flush that he'd slept as far from her as the dwelling allowed. True to his word about not being cruel, Samuel's voice piped up from his own sleeping area. "Father hunts early, says the deer move before sun gets high." The boy studied her with curious eyes. "Do white mothers make different breakfasts than Apache mothers?" "I don't know yet what Apache mothers make." Clara admitted, "Will you show me?" This delighted him. He scrambled up, chattering about corn mush and pine nuts, leading her to the cooking area. Several women were already at work, tending the communal fires. They glanced up at her arrival, and Clara braced for hostility. Instead, Morningstar waved her over. "New wife must learn. I teach you corn mush, not hard, but must do right or children complain." The lesson began immediately. Clara's hands were clumsy with unfamiliar tools grinding stones instead of the modern kitchen implements she'd known. The women corrected her with patience, wearing thin, but she persisted. By the time she produced something resembling edible mush, sweat beaded her forehead despite the cool morning. "Is like this every day?" she asked Morningstar. "Every day. Grind corn, tend fire, haul water, gather plants, prepare hides, make clothes, watch children." Morningstar smiled at Clara's expression. "Apache woman, not decoration like white ladies. We work." Dancing Doe passed by with a water jar balanced on her hip, pausing to inspect Clara's efforts. "Mush looks like paste for fixing baskets," she commented in her improving English. but maybe good enough for first try. It was the closest thing to approval Clara had received from her. She decided to take it as progress. The following days blurred into weeks, each filled with endless tasks. Clara's soft hands blistered, then calloused. Her back ached from bending over grinding stones and cook fires. The doeskin dress that had seemed so foreign became practical necessity. Cotton would have been ruined within days. But it was the social navigation that proved most challenging. 3 women in particular made their opinions known. Morning Star remained friendly, a lifeline in the sea of cultural confusion. But Red Willow, married to one of Black Wolf's supporters, took every opportunity to criticize. And Dancing Doe fluctuated between cutting remarks and unexpected moments of help. "You hold knife wrong," Dancing Doe corrected one afternoon as Clara struggled to scrape a rabbit hide. "Like this." She demonstrated with efficient movements. Maria was hopeless at first too. Took whole season to learn proper way. "You were friends with Maria." Dancing Doe's face shuddered. "Was promised to Joseph, before Maria came. Then he chose Mexican captive over Apache woman. She attacked her own hide with renewed vigor. Now he chooses white woman, always outsiders." Clara's hands stilled. No wonder Dancing Doe resented her. She was the second woman to take what might have been hers. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Many things you don't know. But the venom had left her voice, replaced by resignation. "Joseph follows his own path, always has." The men remained more distant. Apache custom kept strict divisions between male and female spheres. But Clara felt their judgment. Only Crooked Nose, an elder who'd lost an eye to soldiers years ago, showed her kindness. He would nod when she passed, sometimes speaking to Samuel in Apache with words that made the boy glow. "Grandfather says you work hard for white woman." Samuel translated one day. "Says maybe you have Apache spirit hiding under pale skin." But Black Wolf and his followers made their displeasure known in subtler ways. Meat from communal hunts would run out just before Clara's turn. Her water jar would mysteriously crack. Small harassments that couldn't quite be proven deliberate. Joseph noticed. Clara saw it in the tightening of his jaw, the way his hand would rest on his knife when Black Wolf passed too close. But he said nothing directly. And Clara understood she had to prove herself without his protection. Children were her unexpected allies. Besides Samuel, the camp held 15 young ones of various ages. They found her fascinating, a white woman who tried to speak Apache, who let them touch her strange golden hair. She began teaching them simple English words in exchange for Apache lessons, turning language into a game. One evening, a month after her wedding, Clara returned from gathering mesquite pods to find chaos. 5-year-old Little Sparrow, daughter of Sage Flower's sister, burned with fever. The women clustered around her, trying traditional remedies, but the child worsened by the hour. "The sweating sickness," Sage Flower said grimly. "Traders brought it last time. Many children died." Clara knelt beside the child's pallet. The fever was dangerously high. The girl's breathing labored. In Connecticut, she'd helped her mother nurse neighbors through scarlet fever. This looked similar. "I need willow bark," she said urgently. "And cool water, lots of it. We must bring down her fever." Some women looked skeptical, but desperation won. They brought what she asked. Clara stripped the child to her shift, ignoring shocked mutters. She bathed Little Sparrow with cool water, forced willow tea between her lips, and refused to leave her side. Joseph found her there at dawn, still cooling the child's fever. "Samuel says you haven't slept." "The fever broke an hour ago." Clara's voice came out hoarse. "She'll live." He studied her, hollow-eyed. Hair escaped from its braids, dress stained with sweat and medicine. "The women say you used white medicine." "I used what works. Apache, white. Mexican fever doesn't care about boundaries." Something shifted in his expression. He left without another word, but returned with hot tea and corn cakes. "Eat," Healer who falls sick helps no one. It was the first meal they'd shared alone since their wedding. Clara ate mechanically, exhaustion making her limbs heavy. When she swayed, Joseph steadied her with a hand on her elbow. Rest now. Others watched the child. He helped her to their dwelling, and Clara was too tired to feel awkward about his touch. She collapsed on her blankets and slept like the dead. When she woke, the sun slanted low. Voices murmured outside, Samuel chattering about his day, Joseph responding in patient tones, domestic sounds that made her chest tight with unnamed emotion. She emerged to find the camp transformed. Women who'd barely acknowledged her now pressed her hands. Speaking rapid Apache, children brought her flowers. Even Red Willow nodded grudgingly. Little Sparrow asks for her white medicine woman, Sage Flower reported, approval warming her voice. You did good thing. From that day, Clara's status shifted. Not fully accepted, that would take years, but no longer merely tolerated. Women sought her opinion on sick children. Men nodded when she passed. The mysterious white woman had proven she brought more than danger to the band. But with acceptance came expectation. Apache wives were expected to provide children. Morningstar's baby arrived in a difficult birth that required all Clara's newfound skills. As she helped deliver the healthy boy, women made pointed comments about Clara's flat belly. 1 month married, no baby, Red Willow observed. Maybe white women are barren like desert rocks. Clara's face burned, but Morningstar, still breathless from labor, laughed. Or maybe Joseph too respectful. Some men need encouragement. The women cackled, offering increasingly bold advice that transcended language barriers. Clara fled to the relative safety of corn grinding, but the damage was done. The question lodged in her mind like a splinter. That night, as they lay in their separate blankets, Clara gathered courage. Joseph, a rustle in the darkness. Yes. The women, they wonder why there's no child coming. Silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Apache man does not take unwilling wife. You agreed to marriage for survival, not for more. And if I wanted more, the words escaped before she could stop them. She heard his sharp intake of breath. Do not say things you don't mean, Clara. How do you know what I mean? You barely speak to me. Because speaking leads to wanting, and wanting leads to taking. And I will not be man who takes. His voice roughened. Go to sleep. But sleep eluded her. She lay listening to his breathing, wondering when respect had become its own kind of wall between them. The next morning brought distraction. A trading party arrived from another Apache band. Clara watched Joseph negotiate for supplies, noting how others deferred to him despite his relative youth. He was respected here in ways Theodore, for all his social standing, had never been. Among the traders was a Mexican woman named Paloma, captured years ago and now fully Apache. She sought Clara out, curious about another outsider. The change is hard, Paloma said in Spanish, which Clara understood better than Apache. But Apache life has freedoms you won't find elsewhere. Here, women own property, can divorce cruel husbands, choose their paths. Did you choose this path? At first, no, but my Apache husband showed me kindness my Mexican family never did. Now I have 3 children. Respect, purpose. She studied Clara shrewdly. Joseph is good man, best hunter in the band, fair, gentle with children. Many women wanted him after Maria died. Like Dancing Doe. Ah, you know about that. Paloma chuckled. Dancing Doe wanted status more than man. Joseph knew this. He chooses with his heart, not his head. First Maria, now you. He didn't choose me. Circumstances forced. Did they? Paloma interrupted. He could have left you in desert, could have taken you to fort, could have let others decide your fate. Every step was choice. That night, Clara watched Joseph teaching Samuel to fletch arrows. Patient corrections, gentle guidance, Occasional laughter when the boy made jokes. This was the man she'd married, not the distant figure who shared her dwelling like a ghost, but this father, teacher, protector. "Your staring will wear holes in my back," he said without turning. Clara flushed. "I was thinking." Dangerous activity. But she heard the smile in his voice. Samuel piped up. "Father says thinking too much makes the shot go wild. Must feel instead." "Your father may be right." Clara moved closer, drawn by their easy warmth. "What else does he teach?" "Everything hunting, tracking, which plants heal, how to read sky for weather." Samuel's face glowed with hero worship. "He's best hunter in band. Even Black Wolf admits this." "Samuel." Joseph's voice held gentle warning. "Boasting brings bad luck." "Is not boasting if true," the boy protested, then yawned hugely. "True or not, young hunters need sleep." Joseph ruffled his son's hair. "Go, dream of straight arrows." Samuel hugged Clara goodnight, a recent development that never failed to catch her off guard. When had she become someone a child rushed to embrace? Alone with Joseph for once. Clara felt awkward awareness. He continued working on the arrows, but she sensed his equal consciousness of her presence. "I helped deliver Morningstar's baby today," she offered. "I heard medicine woman and midwife now." He glanced up. "You're becoming Apache faster than you know." "Am I?" Clara touched her braided hair, the turquoise at her throat. "Sometimes I feel caught between worlds, not white anymore, not truly Apache." Maria said same thing, told her she was bridge. Two banks of river don't meet without bridge. What did she say to that? His hand stilled. Said bridges get walked on from both directions, but still serve purpose. They sat in companionable silence, the fire crackling between them. Clara studied his profile. Strong nose, scarred jaw, eyes that held depth she was only beginning to glimpse. Her husband, the word felt less foreign now. "Joseph!" When he looked up, she lost her nerve. "Never mind." But he set aside the arrows, giving her full attention. "Ask." "That night, when you found me, why did you save me really?" He considered. First thought was duty. Apache law says help those who need help. But when I saw you under Grandfather Cactus, he paused, choosing words carefully. You looked like warrior after last battle, defeated but not surrendered, still fighting even as spirit left body. Made me think of Maria, how she fought sickness, how I failed to save her. So you saved me instead. Maybe. Or maybe Desert God whispered this was chance for something new. He met her eyes directly. "Do you regret?" "No." The answer came immediately, surprising her with its certainty. "This life is hard, harder than anything I've known. But it's also..." She searched for words. "Real, honest, I know where I stand, even when it's difficult, in my old life. I never knew who was friend or enemy until too late. Here, enemies show themselves plain." Joseph agreed. "Like Black Wolf. He makes no secret of wanting me gone, you gone. But I prefer honest enemy to false friend." "Will he always hate us?" "Hate is strong word. He fears change, sees whites taking Apache land. Apache ways dying, thinks keeping pure traditions will save us." Joseph shook his head. "But pure water that doesn't flow becomes stagnant. Life requires movement, mixing, change." It was the longest speech she'd heard from him. Clara wanted to prolong this rare openness. "Tell me about Maria. How you met?" Pain flickered across his features, but he answered. "Raid on Mexican settlement. I was young warrior, eager to prove myself. Found her hiding in root cellar. Could have called others, taken her proper captive. Instead, I helped her escape." "Why?" "She bit me." He showed her a faint scar on his hand, smiling at the memory. "Drew blood. Thought anyone that fierce deserved freedom, but she followed me back to camp anyway." Said I owed her protection since I'd ruined her hiding place. Clara laughed despite herself. Sounds like she chose you, not the other way around. Maria always said so. Said Apache men think they decide everything, but women let them think that. His smile faded. She was strong, stronger than me. When the sickness came, I tried everything. Apache medicine, Mexican prayers she taught me, even Trader's white medicine. Nothing worked. I'm sorry. Past is past, but Samuel needs mother. Ban needs healer. I need... He stopped. What do you need? His eyes found hers across the fire. Something I have no right to ask. Clara's heart hammered. She rose, moving around the fire to sit beside him, not touching, but close enough to feel his warmth. What if you didn't ask? What if I offered? Clara! Her name was a warning and plea combined. I'm your wife, Joseph, by Apache law, by my choice in front of the soldiers. But not truly, not yet. She placed her hand over his. What if I wanted to be... His hand turned, fingers interlacing with hers. You don't know what you're saying. Desert Sun has... She silenced him with a kiss. Clumsy, uncertain. Nothing like the practiced passion Theodore had shown, but real. Joseph went still. Then his free hand came up to cup her face, deepening the contact with careful intensity. When they broke apart, both breathing unsteadily, he rested his forehead against hers. You're sure? I've been sure since you wrapped your blanket around me in the desert. Just took time to understand it. He stood, pulling her up with him, leading her to their dwelling, inside, away from watching eyes. He kissed her again. This time she tasted promise, possession, and something that might have been joy. Later, as they lay entwined on pushed-together blankets, Clara traced the scars on his chest, each one a story of survival. Outside, an owl called, and the camp settled into sleep. No regrets, Joseph asked, voice drowsy. No regrets. Clara nestled closer. Though the women will be insufferable tomorrow when they realize. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. Let them talk. Apache women always talk, like magpies. I'm Apache woman now. Should I be offended? You're Clara. Category all your own. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Sleep. Tomorrow brings what it brings. As dreams claimed her, Clara marveled at the strange turns of fate. She'd fled west to escape one failed romance, only to find something deeper than anything she'd imagined. Not the passionate drama of youth, but the steady warmth of two scarred souls choosing to heal together. The desert had taken everything from her possessions. Identity, the future she'd planned. But in return, it had given her a husband who saw her strength, a son who called her mother, a community slowly accepting her worth. Not a bad trade, all things considered. The storm came without warning on a night when the moon hid behind thick clouds. Clara woke to thunder that shook the earth and rain that hammered their dwelling like fists. Lightning illuminated the interior in stark flashes, revealing Joseph sitting upright, tense as a drawn bow. Just a storm, Clara murmured, still half asleep. No, listen. His hand found hers in the darkness, between thunder. She strained to hear past the rain's roar. There, shouting, running feet. The camp was in motion despite the weather. Joseph rose, reaching for his weapons. Stay here. Something's wrong. But before he could leave, Sage Flower burst through the entrance, soaked and wild-eyed. Soldiers come and scouts saw their fires before storm hit. They wait for dawn. Clara's blood chilled. It had been 2 months since Captain Webb's visit. She'd almost allowed herself to believe they were safe. How many? Joseph asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. Many, maybe 50, with Apache scouts from Fort Verde. Sage Flower's voice carried dread. Apache scouts meant tracking their every move, knowing their tricks. Thunder crashed overhead, and in its echo, Clara heard Samuel whimper from his sleeping place. She gathered him close, feeling his small body tremble. "What do we do?" she asked. Joseph's face was grim in the lightning's flash. "Pack only essentials. We leave within the hour." The camp erupted in controlled chaos. Families bundled belongings. Warriors prepared weapons. Women strapped babies to their backs. All in darkness. All in driving rain that turned the ground to treacherous mud. Clara dressed quickly in her sturdiest clothing, helping Samuel do the same. Her hands shook as she packed the daguerreotype of her mother, now joined by one of Joseph and Samuel, her medicine bundle, the few clothes that had survived her desert ordeal. "Where will we go?" Samuel asked, trying to be brave despite his chattering teeth. "Your father will know," Clara assured him, praying it was true. Joseph returned, water streaming from his hair. "Thunder Eagle says we split up, smaller groups harder to track. We go with Sage Flower, Morningstar's family, few others. Meet at Skeleton Canyon if separated." They filed out into the storm, a miserable procession of shadows. Clara carried what she could, Samuel clinging to her hand. The rain was cold, shocking after months of desert heat. Within minutes, she was soaked through. The poncho Joseph had given her useless against the deluge. They climbed into the mountains, following paths Clara could barely see. Joseph led their small group, maybe 20 souls, while younger warriors brought up the rear, obscuring their tracks. Though how anyone could track anything in this rain seemed impossible. Lightning revealed the terrain in terrifying snapshots, narrow ledges, steep drops, rocks slick as ice. Clara's foot slipped. She would have fallen if not for Joseph's quick hand steadying her. "Cannot stop," he said close to her ear. "Storm helps hide us, but also slows us. Must reach caves before dawn." Caves. At least there would be shelter. Clara forced her numb feet forward, half carrying Samuel when his strength flagged. Around them, others struggled equally. Morningstar, so recently delivered of her baby, stumbled frequently. Old Crooked Nose wheezed with each step. They climbed higher, the rain turning to sleet. Clara's world narrowed to the next step, the next breath. She'd thought the desert's heat was hell. This frozen misery was worse. "Here," Joseph finally said, guiding them into a hidden cleft in the rock. The cave was shallow but dry, protection from the storm's fury. People collapsed where they stood, too exhausted for proper organization. Clara helped Samuel out of his wet clothes, wrapping him in the one dry blanket she'd managed to protect. "Soak a cold," he stuttered. "I know, brave one. We'll warm up soon." But there could be no fires, the smoke would betray them. They huddled together for warmth. Apache and white woman united in misery. Joseph pressed against Clara's back, his arms encircling both her and Samuel. She felt his heart beating, steady and strong, and drew courage from it. Dawn came gray and bitter. The storm had passed, leaving a world transformed. Snow dusted the higher peaks, and their breath clouded in the cold air. Summer had fled overnight, replaced by autumn's harsh herald. Joseph and the other men held counsel. Clara couldn't hear their words, but their gestures spoke volumes. Disagreement, uncertainty. Black Wolf, of course, he'd ended up in their group, gestured angrily toward Clara. His meaning was clear. The white woman brought this trouble. "Maybe he's right," Clara whispered to Sage Flower. "If I went to them, said I wanted to leave." "You think they let others go free, no?" The older woman's voice was flat. "Soldiers want Apache land. You are excuse, not reason. Without you, they find another excuse." Joseph returned, his face carved from stone. "Scouts found our trail despite the rain. We move again." They pushed deeper into the mountains. Into territories even the Apache rarely ventured. The terrain was brutal vertical climbs that left Clara's hands bloody, descents that required lowering children on ropes. Samuel tried to be strong, but she saw the exhaustion in his young face. On the third day, disaster struck. They'd stopped to rest in a small valley. Hidden, they thought, but the Apache scouts with the soldiers were good too good. "Run!" The cry came from their rear guard. Gunfire erupted, echoing off canyon walls. Clara grabbed Samuel, but Joseph pushed them toward Morningstar. "Take him! Go!" "No." Clara reached for him, but he was already moving toward the fighting. Sage Flower dragged her away. "Warriors buy us time. We must use it." They ran through brush that tore at their clothes, across a freezing stream, up another endless slope. Behind them, the shooting intensified. Clara's heart screamed to go back, but Samuel's hand in hers kept her moving. They reached a defensible position, a cave system Morningstar knew from childhood. The women and children crowded inside while they waited, and waited, and waited. The warriors trickled back in ones and twos. Joseph wasn't among them. "Where is he?" Clara grabbed Swift River, Morningstar's husband. "Where's Joseph?" The man's face told her before his words. "Captured. He and 3 others held them so we could escape." The world tilted. Clara might have fallen if not for Samuel's sudden fierce hug. "Father will come back," the boy said firmly. "He always comes back." But days passed with no word. They couldn't stay in the caves, too many mouths to feed. No sustainable water. Thunder Eagle, who'd found them despite the separation, made the hard decision. "We go to Skeleton Canyon. If Joseph lives, he knows to find us there." The journey took another week of hardship. Clara moved mechanically, focused on keeping Samuel safe and fed. At night, she lay awake wondering, was Joseph alive? Being tortured for information, had he already been hanged as an example? Skeleton Canyon proved a good refuge water, game, hidden valleys for camps. Other scattered groups found them, but as days turned to weeks, hope faded. Then Black Wolf struck. Clara had gone to gather piñon nuts, Samuel helping. They were alone, a mistake she'd never have made if not for grief-dulled judgment. Black Wolf and 2 supporters surrounded them. "White witch," he spat in English he'd apparently been hiding. "You destroy everything. First Joseph brings Mexican woman. Now you. Each time, soldiers follow. Each time, Apache die." "Please," Clara put Samuel behind her. "We've done nothing to you." "Nothing Joseph captured because of you. Good warriors dead because of you. Now you raise half-blood boy to weaken us more." His hand went to his knife. "Better you join desert spirits. Boy too. End pollution." Clara's hand found the small knife at her belt. Joseph had insisted she carry it always. "You'd kill a child, your own people's child." Half-blood is not Apache, but one of his companions looked uncomfortable. Killing women and children violated their deepest laws, even if that woman was white. "Joseph's son is more Apache than you," Clara said, surprising herself with her steady voice. "You speak of tradition while plotting murder. You cry about weakness while showing cowardice. 3 warriors against a woman and child, your ancestors would spit on you." Black Wolf's face darkened with rage. He stepped forward, and Clara prepared to die defending Samuel. The arrow came from nowhere, thudding into the ground between them. Everyone froze. "Step away from my wife." Clara's knees nearly buckled. Joseph stood on the ridge above, bow drawn, looking like death itself. His clothes were torn, face gaunt, but his aim was steady. "My wife," he repeated in Apache. "My son, touch them and feed the vultures." Black Wolf calculated odds. Joseph might be weakened, but he was still the band's best warrior. And his supporters were wavering. Attempted murder of women and children was one thing. Defying a husband protecting his family was another. "This is not finished," Black Wolf snarled, backing away. "No," Joseph agreed. "But today it ends with you breathing. Tomorrow, who knows?" They retreated, and Joseph half climbed, half fell down the ridge. Clara caught him, feeling 2 prominent ribs, seeing new scars across his back. "You're hurt." Tears she'd held back for weeks spilled over. "I thought we thought—" "Takes more than soldiers to kill me." He cupped her face with a shaking hand. "Are you well, Samuel?" "Father!" The boy crashed into them, and they went down in a tangle of limbs and desperate embraces. Later, in the privacy of their hastily erected shelter, Joseph told his story. Capture, interrogation he wouldn't detail. A sympathetic sergeant, the same lieutenant from before, now promoted, who'd left his cell door accidentally unlocked. "He said something strange." Joseph murmured against her hair. "Said his own grandmother was Choctaw, hidden it his whole life to serve. Said he understood choosing between worlds." "Will they follow?" "Eventually. But winter comes. Soldiers don't like fighting in snow." His arms tightened around her. "We have time." That night, the storm that had started everything returned. But this time, Clara wasn't afraid. She lay between her husband and son, listening to rain on hide, feeling safer than she'd ever felt in stone houses. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. Words she'd never said to Theodore. Words that meant something here. Joseph's response was in Apache words she'd learned meant, "My heart's home." Then, in English. "When they had me, one thought kept me strong. Clara waits. Samuel waits. Must return." "Black Wolf was right about one thing," Clara said. "I do bring trouble." "Life brings trouble. Love brings reason to endure it." He kissed her forehead. "Sleep, stubborn woman. Tomorrow we survive again." The storm raged on. But inside their shelter, a different kind of warmth grew. They'd been tested by separation, threat, near death. They'd chosen each other not once but repeatedly, in the face of every opposition. In the morning, they'd face new challenges. Winter in the mountains, soldiers who wouldn't give up, Black Wolf's festering hatred, a life of constant movement, constant danger. But tonight, Clara pressed her ear to Joseph's chest, heard his heart beating sure and strong, and knew she was exactly where she belonged. The girl who'd fled New York's ballrooms had become a woman who faced down warriors. The abandoned bride had found a love worth fighting for. Outside, thunder rolled across the canyons like laughter, the desert gods amused by another small human drama in their vast domain. But Clara no longer cared what gods or men thought. She was Joseph's wife, Samuel's mother, Apache by choice if not by blood. She was home. The soldiers came at dawn on a day when frost still clung to the canyon walls. Clara was teaching Samuel and other children basic arithmetic using pebbles when the warning cry went up. This time, there was no storm to hide them, no darkness to cover their escape. "Everyone remain calm," Thunder Eagle commanded. But Clara saw the grim resignation in his eyes. They were trapped in the canyon with only one narrow exit, and blue uniforms already blocked it. Joseph found her among the women gathering children. "Remember what we discussed," he said quietly. "If they take me—" "They won't!" Clara gripped his hand fiercely. "Not again." But they both knew the truth. The soldiers had come in force, at least 100 men, with howitzers positioned on the ridge. This wasn't a search party. It was an army. Captain Webb rode forward under a white flag, and Clara's heart sank. The same officer from before, but his previous frustration had hardened into determination. Beside him rode a man in civilian clothes, a government official by his bearing. "I am James Morrison, Federal Commissioner for Indian Affairs," the civilian announced. "By order of the United States government, this band is commanded to surrender and report to the San Carlos Reservation." Thunder Eagle stepped forward, dignity intact despite their hopeless position. "We have done nothing wrong. This is our land, given by our fathers' fathers." "Your land is what the government says it is," Morrison replied coldly. "Surrender peacefully, and you'll be treated fairly. Resist, and—" He gestured to the howitzers. "And the white woman," Webb interjected, his eyes finding Clara easily. She comes with us, for her own protection. I am Apache, Clara called out before Joseph could stop her. I stay with my family. Morrison's lip curled. Ma'am, you're clearly suffering from some delusion brought on by your captivity. No white woman would choose. I chose. Clara stepped forward, Samuel's hand in hers. This is my husband by Apache law. This is my son. I go nowhere without them. Apache law. Morrison laughed unpleasantly. Savage customs mean nothing. You're an American citizen, and as such. Then arrest me, Clara interrupted. If I'm such a citizen, then I demand a trial, in a proper court, with lawyers and witnesses. The commissioner's face flushed. You dare make demands after degrading yourself with these heathens? Careful. Morrison. A new voice, the lieutenant who'd helped Joseph escape, now wearing captain's insignia. The lady has a point. She's committed no crime we can prove. Can't arrest someone for marriage, distasteful as we might find it. Captain Rodriguez. Webb spat the name like a curse. I might have known you'd take their side. Your own mixed blood showing. Rodriguez's hand moved to his sidearm, but he controlled himself. I take the law's side, and the law says we can't force a free woman against her will without cause. Living with savages isn't cause enough. Not according to the statutes I've read. While the officers argued, Clara noticed movement among the Apache warriors. Subtle shifts in position, hands moving to weapons. Joseph caught her eye, and she understood if fighting erupted, she was to take Samuel and run for the hidden caves. But Thunder Eagle raised his hand, and the warriors stilled. The old chief had made his decision. We will come, he said heavily, to avoid bloodshed of women and children. But all come, no one left behind, no one taken against will. Morrison started to protest, but Rodriguez cut him off. Agreed. The entire band relocates to San Carlos. Together. It took 3 days to organize the forced march. 3 days of soldiers watching their every move, of packing what little they could carry, of saying goodbye to homeland. Clara helped where she could, but her presence created complications. You don't have to do this, Rodriguez told her privately. No one would blame you for choosing civilization. This is my civilization now, Clara replied. These people saved my life, gave me purpose. I won't abandon them. He studied her with eyes that held unexpected understanding. My grandmother would have liked you. She chose love over acceptance, too. Died never regretting it. The march itself was a nightmare. Hundreds of miles through hostile terrain, the elderly and children struggling to keep pace. The soldiers showed little mercy. Stragglers were prodded forward with rifle butts. Rest stops kept brutally short. Clara walked until her feet bled through her moccasins, carrying children when their mothers faltered. Joseph wasn't allowed near her. The warriors were kept under heavy guard, but she felt his constant watchful presence. On the 5th day, Little Sparrow, the child Clara had saved from fever, collapsed. Her mother wailed as the girl's breathing grew labored. Please, Clara begged the nearest officer. Let me tend to her. I have medical knowledge. Keep moving, he ordered. No stops for sick Indians. She's a child. Clara's composure finally cracked. A 5-year-old child. What kind of monsters? The soldier raised his rifle butt, but Rodriguez appeared. Let her treat the girl. 5 minutes. It wasn't enough time, but Clara did what she could water. Willow bark for the fever. Prayers to any god listening. When they forced her to move on, she carried Little Sparrow herself, feeling the child's burning weight as judgment on everything civilization claimed to represent. They lost 3 elders and a baby before reaching San Carlos. The reservation was a shock-barren land. Inadequate shelter. Hundreds of Apache from different bands crowded together like cattle. The proud people who'd lived free as the wind were reduced to standing in line for meager government rations. This is what they call fair treatment, Clara asked bitterly as they were assigned a patch of dirt for their shelter. Is better than bullets, Sage Flower replied, but her voice held no conviction. They were processed like livestock. Names recorded, heads counted, movements restricted. When Clara's turn came, Morrison himself handled her case. Mrs. Clara Whitmore, he read from a file. Reported missing, presumed dead. Your former fiancé will be relieved to hear you survived. Clara's blood chilled. Theodore knows I'm alive. Oh yes, took quite an interest when reports surfaced of a white woman living willingly with Apache. Said he'd gladly testify to your unstable mental state. Seems you suffered quite a breakdown after he ended your engagement. He jilted me. That's not how he tells it. Says you became hysterical, threatened violence, fled west in a deranged state. Morrison smiled coldly. Perfect grounds for having you committed to an asylum, for your own good, of course. Clara felt the world tilt. Even here, Theodore's reach extended. His pride wouldn't allow the truth that he'd chosen money over love, so he'd rewritten history, painted her as the mad woman. However, Morrison continued, I might be persuaded to lose this file. If you cooperate, publicly renounce this sham marriage, testify about your captivity, help us show why these savages need firm guidance. Never. Think carefully. Your alternative is an asylum back east, padded cells, ice baths, treatments to cure your delusions. He leaned forward. Is protecting these heathens worth your sanity, your freedom? That night, Clara lay between Joseph and Samuel in their pitiful shelter, telling them about Morrison's threat. Joseph's body went rigid with fury. I kill him, he said simply. Tonight, while he sleeps. No, Clara caught his hand. That's what they want, an excuse to punish all Apache. We have to be smarter. What is smarter than removing threat, using their own laws against them? A plan formed in her mind. Rodriguez, he has sympathy for us, maybe even more than sympathy. If I could get word to certain people, newspapers perhaps. It took weeks to set in motion. Weeks of dodging Morrison's increasingly aggressive attempts to break her. Weeks of watching proud warriors reduced to begging for food. Of children forgetting how to smile. But Clara persisted, secretly passing letters through Rodriguez to journalists back east. The story, when it broke, caused sensation. White woman chooses love over race. Government threatens asylum for Apache wife. Reporters descended on San Carlos, eager for the romantic tragedy. Clara played her part perfectly. Not the mad woman Morrison painted, but an eloquent advocate for her adopted people. She spoke of Joseph's honor, Samuel's innocence, the injustice of reservation life. Photos of her in Apache dress, standing dignified beside her husband and son, ran in papers nationwide. Theodore, of course, tried to counter, but his story unraveled when reporters discovered he'd married his wealthy bride mere weeks after Clara's supposed breakdown. Public sympathy swung firmly to Clara's side. The pressure worked. Morrison was quietly recalled, his threats of asylum evaporating. But victory came at a cost. Clara was now notorious, the white woman who'd chosen savagery. She received letters ranging from marriage proposals to death threats. You regret? Joseph asked one evening, reading over her shoulder as she sorted through the mail. Never. She leaned into his solid warmth. Though I wonder what happens now. We can't leave the reservation, can't live freely. What future does Samuel have here? Joseph was quiet for a long moment. Rodriguez speaks of changes coming, new policies, schools for Apache children. Maybe Samuel learns both ways, Apache heart, white education, becomes bridge you spoke of. And us, we survive. As Apache always survive, bend like river reed. But don't break. He kissed her temple. Together. A commotion outside interrupted them. Clara emerged to find soldiers surrounding a wagon, new arrivals to the reservation. Among them, shackled and defiant, stood Black Wolf. Their eyes met across the compound. His burned with hatred undiminished. Clara knew this wasn't over, would never be over, as long as men like Black Wolf saw her as the symbol of everything destroying their world. But Morningstar appeared at her elbow, baby on her hip. "Come, Women's Council meets tonight. Important decisions." "They want me there." "Your Apache wife. Your voice needed." She smiled sadly. "Even in this cage, we continue traditions. Adapt, survive." That night, Clara sat among the Apache women as they discussed how to preserve their culture within reservation constraints, how to teach children the old songs quietly, how to maintain customs under government eyes. She contributed what she could, suggesting ways to work within the system while subverting it. "You think like Apache now," Grandmother Crow observed. "Clever, using enemy strength against them." It was the highest compliment she'd received. Clara felt tears prick her eyes, gratitude for acceptance she'd never expected to find. Later, returning to their shelter, she found Joseph teaching Samuel to write not just Apache symbols, but English letters. "See," the boy said proudly, showing her his work. "Father says I must learn both. Be strong in two worlds." Clara met Joseph's eyes over their son's head. Yes, this was their future, not the romantic freedom of the old ways, but this careful negotiation between worlds. It wasn't what she dreamed of when fleeing west, but it was real, grounded in love and determination rather than fairy tale notions. "Tomorrow, I start teaching all the children," she announced. "Reading, writing, arithmetic. If they must live in the white world, they'll enter it armed with education." Joseph smiled, that rare expression that transformed his face. "My wife, the warrior, fighting with books instead of bullets. Someone has to prepare them for what's coming. And someone will," he agreed. Clara hunts the storm. Teacher, healer, bridge between worlds. As she settled between her husband and son, Clara reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. From jilted bride to Apache wife, from comfortable ignorance to difficult knowledge, from isolation to belonging. The reservation was a prison. Yes, their future uncertain. Enemies circled, both white and Apache. But she'd found something here she'd never had in her old life purpose. People who needed her. A love that had survived capture. Forced marches, attempts to tear them apart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Morrison's replacement might be worse. Black Wolf would scheme. The slow death of traditional ways would continue. But tonight, listening to Joseph's steady breathing and Samuel's soft snores, Clara felt a fierce protectiveness rise in her chest. They'd taken her people's land, their freedom, their dignity. But they couldn't take this, the bonds forged in hardship, the family created from loss, the love that transcended every boundary society tried to impose. She was Clara Hunts the Storm, and she would not let them break what she'd fought so hard to build. The reservation slept fitfully around them. Hundreds of Apache souls dreaming of open skies, but in one small shelter. A white woman who'd chosen love over acceptance held her world close and prepared for whatever battles tomorrow might bring. The fight was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. The escape plan came to Clara in pieces. Whispered conversations with those still loyal to the old ways. Captain Rodriguez, now a secret ally, brought fragments of hope maps marked with hidden routes. Schedules of guard changes. Rumors of valleys where Apache still lived free. "There's a place," he told her during one of his inspection tours. "Deep in the Sierra Madre. Mexico doesn't patrol there. America can't reach it. Some of your husband's cousins have made camp there." Clara memorized every detail while pretending to teach Samuel his letters. The boy, now 8 and sharp as a hawk, understood the need for secrecy. He'd grown too fast on the reservation. Childhood crushed under the weight of captivity. Joseph gathered supporters carefully. Not all Apache wanted to risk escape. Some had resigned themselves. Others feared reprisals on those left behind. But a core group emerged Morningstar and Swift River with their children. crooked nose despite his age, several young warriors who still remembered freedom, even Dancing Doe. Her hostility, long since mellowed into respect, chose to join them. The greatest surprise was Sage Flower. "You think I let my son go without his mother?" she said when Clara expressed concern about her age. "These old bones have miles left." Black Wolf presented the biggest danger. Still consumed by hatred, he'd become an informant for the reservation officials, trading information for privileges. They had to plan around him, knowing he watched their every move. "He follows you especially," Joseph warned Clara. "Waits for mistake to report." But Clara had learned patience from her Apache sisters. She maintained her routine teaching children, tending sick, playing the role of the reformed white woman who'd found her calling helping the less fortunate. Morrison's replacement, a man named Hartley, seemed to buy the act. The opportunity came in late spring when a measles outbreak distracted the authorities. While officials scrambled to contain the disease, Clara put their plan in motion. "Medicine plants," she told the guards, showing her healing bundle. "In the mountains, children need them for fever." They'd grown accustomed to her gathering expeditions. With Rodriguez's subtle support, she received permission to take a small group of women. What the guards didn't realize was that Joseph and the warriors had left the night before, supposedly on a sanctioned hunting trip. Clara led her group 6 women, 8 children, including Samuel, toward the designated meeting spot. Her heart hammered as they passed the last guard post, but her face remained calm. Just another medicine gathering. Nothing suspicious. They walked steadily until sunset, then veered off the approved path, in a hidden canyon. Joseph waited with the men and supplies Rodriguez had smuggled to them: weapons, food, blankets. "No time for rest," Joseph said after a brief embrace. "They'll discover us missing by morning." They traveled through the night, adults carrying smaller children, everyone pushing beyond exhaustion. Clara's feet, once soft from Eastern luxury, now knew every type of terrain. But this desperate flight brought new challenges, maintaining silence with frightened children, navigating in darkness, always listening for pursuit. Dawn found them deep in the mountains, but exposed. They needed to cross open ground to reach the next cover, a risky move in daylight. "I smell smoke," Swift River said suddenly. Joseph's face went grim. "They burn the grasslands, force us into the open." Behind them, a line of fire advanced, not natural wildfire, but controlled burns set by Apache scouts who knew their quarry's tricks. The reservation had sent their own people to hunt them. Through the creek, Joseph decided, "Water breaks our scent, smoke stays high." They plunged into the icy stream, wading upstream while fire crackled on both banks. Children whimpered from cold and fear, but their mothers kept them moving. Clara carried a toddler whose parents had died in the outbreak, feeling the child's trust like a sacred weight. For hours they fought through water and smoke, until finally reaching a stone valley where fire couldn't follow. But their relief was short-lived. Horses approached from the east. "Hide the children," Joseph commanded. Clara and the women scrambled into a cave system, pressing deep into darkness. Outside, she heard voices, some in English, others in Apache. Her blood chilled when she recognized Black Wolf's harsh tones. "They came this way," he insisted. "The white woman leads them to corruption. Let me find them." "Your personal vendetta clouds your judgment," another voice replied, an Apache policeman, one of those who'd chosen to serve the reservation. "We return. The fire will drive them out or kill them. Either serves." The voices faded, but they waited hours before emerging. When they did, the world had changed. Smoke hung thick, ash fell like snow, and the easy paths were blocked by flame. "We go over the mountain," Joseph decided. "Hard climb, but smoke rises. We stay low, we breathe." It was a nightmare ascent. Clara's world narrowed to handholds in stone, Samuel's weight on her back, the taste of ash with every breath. Above them, the mountain loomed impossibly tall. Below, Fire consumed their past. Old Crooked Nose faltered first. The climb was too much for his age. Smoke too harsh for scarred lungs. He sat heavily on a ledge, waving them on. "Leave me," he wheezed. "I die free, not caged. Good death." Joseph gripped the elder's shoulder. They both knew there was no other choice. Carrying him would doom everyone. Clara saw tears track through the ash on Joseph's face as they continued upward, leaving a good man to choose his ending. They lost 2 more before reaching the summit, a young mother who slipped on loose stone, her infant daughter still strapped to her back. The group's wails echoed off stone until Joseph silenced them. Mourn later, survive now. The descent proved equally treacherous. Exhaustion made everyone clumsy. Clara fell hard, tearing open her palms, but rose immediately. No time for pain. Behind them, the fire had reached the tree line, creating its own wind that howled like pursuing demons. Then, miraculously, rain. It started as drops that hissed on hot stone, then became a deluge that doused flames and turned ash to mud. They stood in the downpour, faces raised to heaven, drinking sky water that tasted of salvation. "The gods remember Apache," Sage Flower said, "even when Apache forget themselves." They made camp in a protected grove, too exhausted to continue. Joseph posted guards, but Clara doubted anyone had strength left to pursue them. They were beyond reservation boundaries now, in that gray area where jurisdiction blurred. "Tomorrow we reach the trading post," Joseph told her as they huddled under a shared blanket. "Rodriguez arranged supplies there, then into Mexico." "Will we be safe there?" "Safer. Mexican government cares little for American rules. And the hidden valley?" He almost smiled. "They say it's like the old places. Water, game, shelter, room to live properly." Samuel stirred between them. "Will there be other children?" "Yes," Clara promised. "Children who've never seen fences. You'll teach them English. They'll teach you the old ways." It was a fragile hope, but hope nonetheless. The trading post appeared abandoned when they arrived, but Rodriguez stepped from the shadows, no longer in uniform. "Thought you might need a guide," he said simply. Clara stared. "You deserted. Chose conscience over career." He shrugged. "My grandmother's spirit gave me no peace. Said I was no better than the conquistadors if I helped cage Apache." His presence proved invaluable. He knew the border patrol patterns, had contacts among Mexican officials, spoke fluent Spanish to smooth their way. Still, crossing the border required care. They moved at night, avoided towns, became ghosts drifting south. 2 weeks into Mexico, they met the first free Apache scouts from the hidden settlement who'd been watching for them. The reunion was bittersweet joy at reaching safety, sorrow for those lost along the way. The valley exceeded Joseph's descriptions. Nestled between protective peaks, watered by natural springs, it held everything needed for traditional life. Wickiups stood among trees. Children played without fear, and the air itself felt different, untainted by reservation despair. "Welcome, sister." A woman greeted Clara in accented English. "I am Rosa. Was Mexican like Morning Star, now just Apache. Here, no one asks what you were, only what you are." They were given a spot near the stream to build their shelter. As Clara worked beside Joseph, weaving branches into walls, she felt something she'd thought lost forever possibility. Samuel ran with other children, learning games no reservation would allow. Sage Flower sat with elders, sharing news and renewing old friendships. "You regret?" Joseph asked that first night in their new home. "This is not the life I promised. Always hiding, always running." Clara looked around their simple shelter, rough-hewn but theirs. Listened to Samuel's laughter mixing with other children's voices. Felt the absence of guards, fences, watching eyes. "I regret nothing," she said firmly, "except those we lost." Joseph pulled her close. "They chose warrior deaths. better than slow dying on reservation. A scratch at their door interrupted. Dancing Doe entered, carrying something wrapped in deerskin. "For you," she said gruffly, handing it to Clara. "Made it on the journey." Clara unwrapped it carefully, gasping at what lay inside a cradleboard, intricately decorated with beadwork telling a story. Their story. A white woman arriving, seasons changing, harmony growing. "For the child coming," Dancing Doe added, glancing meaningfully at Clara's belly. Clara's hand flew to her stomach, in the chaos of escape. She'd ignored the signs morning sickness blamed on travel, exhaustion attributed to stress. But now, "You knew?" she asked Joseph. His smile was answer enough. "Apache husband notices changes. Wanted you to discover in peace, not fear." Dancing Doe left them to their joy. Clara traced the beadwork through tears, such artistry from one who'd resented her so long. The cradleboard represented more than acceptance. It was a promise that this child would know both worlds but be trapped by neither. "What do we name a child born between worlds?" Clara wondered. "Whatever name fits their spirit." Joseph replied, "Apache way is to wait, watch, learn who child becomes." That night, Clara lay listening to the valley's sounds wind through pines, water over stone, an owl calling to its mate. No bugles, no roll calls, no sounds of captivity. They'd paid dearly for this freedom. Friends lost, families scattered, futures uncertain. The authorities might still hunt them. Mexico's tolerance might change. The hidden valley might be discovered. But for now, they were free. Free to live, love, raise children who knew their heritage. Free to be neither fully white nor fully Apache, but something new people who chose their own path. Clara's hand rested on her belly, feeling the first flutter of movement. This child would never see reservation fences, would speak Apache and English with equal fluency, would know both Shakespeare and coyote stories, arithmetic and tracking, Clara's mother's lullabies and Joseph's hunting songs. "Sleep, stubborn woman," Joseph murmured. "Tomorrow brings work enough." "What work?" "Building, teaching, living." He kissed her forehead. "The work of free people." Clara smiled in the darkness. Yes, tomorrow would bring challenges. Black Wolf might still pursue them. Soldiers might cross borders. The outside world might intrude on their sanctuary. But tonight, in a hidden valley where Apache ways survived, a white woman who'd chosen love over society's approval lay in her husband's arms and felt their child quicken with life. Samuel slept peacefully nearby, no longer old before his time. Sage Flower snored in the shelter next door, having chosen family over comfortable captivity. They were fugitives, outcasts, people without a country. They were also free. And for Clara Hunts the Storm, who'd traveled from New York ballrooms to reservation cages to this wild sanctuary, freedom tasted sweeter than any life society had planned for her. The mountains stood guard around their valley, ancient and patient. Stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had witnessed her desperate flight from civilization, her dying beneath a saguaro, her rebirth as something new. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tonight, she was simply Clara wife, mother, teacher, healer, bridge between worlds. It was more than enough. It was everything. The pains came with the first snow of winter. Clara gripped the birthing pole as Sage Flower and Rosa coached her through each wave. Outside, she could hear Joseph pacing. Apache men didn't attend births, but his presence was palpable even through the wiki-up walls. "Strong baby," Rosa encouraged. "Fights to enter world, like the mother." Hours passed in that timeless space where pain and purpose merged. Clara thought of her own mother, dead these many years, and wished desperately for her presence. But these Apache women had become her mothers, sisters, teachers. Their hands were sure, their voices steady. When her son finally emerged, his first cry rang clear and strong through the winter air. Clara heard whoops of joy from outside, the men celebrating new life in their small sanctuary. "A warrior," Sage Flower pronounced, cleaning the baby with practiced efficiency. "Look, he has his father's nose, but your stubborn chin." Clara laughed through exhaustion as they placed the baby at her breast. He latched immediately, knowing his purpose with instinctive certainty. The wickiup flap lifted, and Joseph entered, his face soft with wonder. "Our son," Clara said simply, lifting the bundle for him to see. Joseph touched the baby's head with infinite gentleness. "He needs milk name until we know his spirit." They called him Riverstone Temporary Identity until his true name revealed itself through personality and deeds. Samuel was beside himself with joy, proclaiming his duties as big brother to anyone who'd listen. "I'll teach him tracking and English and how to catch rabbits and—" "First teach him to sleep through night," Sage Flower interrupted dryly. "Then we talk of rabbits." Life in the Hidden Valley had settled into rhythms both new and ancient. They'd built a small school where Clara taught Apache and Mexican children alongside Samuel. Reading and writing. Yes, but also cultural exchange stories from all their backgrounds woven together. Rodriguez, now calling himself by his grandmother's surname, Chavez, had proven invaluable. His military training helped organize defenses, while his contacts kept them informed of outside searches. He'd found unexpected happiness with a widow named Paloma, their romance a quiet counterpoint to the valley's daily struggles. But peace couldn't last forever. The rider came on a spring morning when Riverstone was 3 months old. An Apache scout from the north, exhausted horse foaming at the mouth. His message sent ice through Clara's veins. "Black Wolf comes. He leads reservation police and American bounty hunters. They know of this place." The council convened immediately. Some voted to flee deeper into Mexico. Others wanted to stand and fight. Clara listened to the debates while nursing Riverstone, feeling the weight of her children's futures. "We cannot run forever," she said when called upon. "Each time we flee, we lose people, elders, children, pieces of ourselves." "Then what do you suggest, white woman?" The challenge came from a warrior she didn't know well, one who still questioned her place among them. Clara stood, passing Riverstone to Sage Flower. "We use American law against itself. Rodriguez Chavez has contacts among Mexican officials. There are treaties, agreements. If we can prove we're political refugees rather than criminals—" "Papers and laws," the warrior scoffed. "These save no one when bullets fly." "Sometimes they do," Chavez interjected. "The Mexican government has no love for American expansion. If we present ourselves right, request formal sanctuary." It was a desperate gamble, but Joseph supported it. "My wife speaks wisdom. We try words first. Keep bullets for last resort." They had perhaps a week before Black Wolf arrived. Clara worked frantically with Chavez, documenting their case, testimonies of peaceful intentions, evidence of the reservation's brutal conditions, even a letter from a sympathetic missionary who'd witnessed their persecution. Meanwhile, Joseph organized discreet defenses. If paperwork failed, they wouldn't go quietly. The confrontation came at dawn. Black Wolf rode at the head of 30 men, a mix of Apache police, American bounty hunters, and Mexican guides bought with promises of gold. They stopped just outside the valley's natural entrance, aware they were being watched. "Joseph hunts the storm," Black Wolf called out. "Face me with honor, or I burn you out like the coward you are." Joseph emerged from cover, Clara at his side despite his protests. Samuel and Riverstone were hidden with the other children, but she wouldn't let her husband face this alone. "Still hiding behind the white woman's skirts," Black Wolf sneered. "She has poisoned you, weakened our blood, led our people to ruin." "Our people were in ruins before she came," Joseph replied calmly. "Dying slowly in cages. At least here we die free, if die we must. Surrender the woman and her half-blood spawn. Take your punishment like a warrior. Perhaps others will be spared." Clara stepped forward before Joseph could respond. "I speak for myself. Black Wolf, You want someone to blame for your pain. Here I am. But know this, I carry papers from the Mexican government. Official sanctuary for political refugees. Your American friends have no authority here. It was partly bluff the papers were requested, but not yet confirmed. Black Wolf's eyes narrowed, sensing deception but unable to prove it. Mexican papers mean nothing. You are Apache now. You say, then face Apache justice. He dismounted, drawing his knife. Combat trial. You win. We leave. I win. You come willingly. Clara, no, Joseph started, but she touched his arm. What are the terms? Black Wolf smiled coldly. First blood. You may choose a champion, of course, being a weak woman. Clara felt rage rise in her chest pure, clarifying anger at this man who'd haunted their steps, threatened her children, reduced complex history to simple hatred. Before anyone could stop her, she stepped into the circle forming naturally around them. I choose myself. Gasps rippled through both groups. Even Black Wolf looked momentarily stunned. Apache women were strong, capable, but formal combat was men's domain. Clara! Joseph's voice was tight with fear. You don't have to. Yes, I do. She accepted a knife from Chavez, testing its weight. He'll never stop. None of them will. Until they see. See what? Black Wolf regained his sneer. That white women play at being warriors. That this white woman would die for her Apache family? Can you say the same about those who pay you? The fight was brief, but vicious. Black Wolf had every advantage: size, strength, training. But Clara had desperation and years of hard living. When he lunged, expecting Eastern softness, she twisted aside with a desert-learned agility. When he grabbed her wrist, she remembered Joseph's quiet lessons and broke free. Still, he was winning. A cut on her arm bled freely, another on her thigh. He played with her, cat with a mouse, savoring the moment. Then Riverstone cried. The sound carried clear from the hidden cave's infant hunger that couldn't be silenced. Clara's baby calling for his mother. Black Wolf's face lit with cruel purpose, and he turned toward the sound. The half-blood whelp. Clara moved without thinking. The knife felt weightless as she drove it between his ribs, angling up as Joseph had shown her when cleaning game. Black Wolf's eyes widened with surprise that faded to something almost like respect. Perhaps, he gasped, falling to his knees. Perhaps you are Apache after all. First blood, the fight was won. But Black Wolf's men bristled with weapons, and Clara knew they balanced on a knife's edge. Then thunder filled the valley not from the sky, but from horses. Mexican cavalry, 50 strong, riding hard with Chavez's contact Captain Morales at their head. Lower your weapons, Morales commanded. This valley is under protection of the Mexican Republic. All foreign agents will leave immediately or face arrest. The paperwork had come through. What followed was tense negotiation. The American bounty hunters wanted no part of international incident. The Apache police found themselves outnumbered and out of jurisdiction. Within hours, they were escorted firmly to the border. Black Wolf lived, though barely. As they loaded him onto a travois, he caught Clara's arm with surprising strength. You fight for them, he wheezed. Really fight. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe change not always poison. Rest, Clara said, unable to hate this broken man. Heal. Find peace. No peace, he managed. But perhaps understanding. They never saw him again. That night, the valley celebrated survival. Music, dancing, feast from carefully hoarded supplies. Clara sat nursing Riverstone while watching Samuel dance with the other children. His movements confident and free. My warrior wife, Joseph murmured, tending her wounds with gentle hands. You terrify me. I terrify myself sometimes. Clara admitted. The person I've become, my mother wouldn't recognize her. Would she be proud? Clara considered. Sarah Whitmore had been a proper Connecticut lady who valued education, kindness, moral courage. Would she understand a daughter who'd chosen love over race, family over society, freedom over safety? I think, yes, in her own way. She was a fighter too, just used different weapons. Sage Flower approached, carrying something wrapped in white doeskin. From the women, she said formally. And the men, all agree. Clara unwrapped it carefully, breath catching at what lay inside. An eagle feather, earned through act of courage, the highest honor the band could bestow. You are Apache. Sage Flower proclaimed loud enough for all to hear. Not by blood, by choice, by deed, by sacrifice. Let none say otherwise. Tears blurred Clara's vision as Joseph helped her stand. The entire band Apache, Mexican, even a few other refugees who'd found their way here watched as he fixed the feather in her hair. Speech, Samuel called out, grinning widely. Clara looked over the assembled faces. Her family, her people, her choice. 6 years ago, I was dying under a cactus, running from a life that never fit. Joseph saved my body, but all of you saved my spirit, taught me strength I didn't know existed, gave me purpose beyond myself. She lifted Riverstone so all could see him. This child, all our children, are the bridge between worlds. They'll know hardship, yes, but also freedom. They'll speak many languages, honor many traditions, and maybe they'll find the peace that eludes us. To the bridge builders, Chavez raised a cup of Tiswin. To the survivors, others echoed. To the family we choose, Morningstar added, her own mixed children playing at her feet. As the celebration continued around them, Clara found a quiet moment with her husband and sons. Riverstone slept milk-drunk in her arms while Samuel chattered about the day's excitement. Joseph's solid presence anchored them all. What comes next? She asked. Tomorrow Samuel has lessons. Riverstone needs new wrappings. Garden needs tending. Joseph smiled. After that we lived you, day by day, season by season, teaching our children they can be both and neither, Apache and white and something entirely new. And if they come again, the authorities, the hunters, then we face them, together, as we always have. Clara leaned into his strength, watching stars emerge over their hidden valley. Somewhere beyond these mountains, the world was changing. Railroads pushed west. Wars between nations reshaped borders. The old ways died a little more each day. But here, in this pocket of resistance and hope, 2 small boys would grow up knowing their worth wasn't determined by blood quantum or skin color, would learn that family meant choice, that strength came in many forms, that love could conquer even the deepest prejudice. I love you, Clara whispered to her husband. Thank you. For what? For seeing me dying under that cactus, for being stubborn enough to save me, for giving me this life I never knew I wanted. Joseph kissed her forehead, then Riverstone's, then ruffled Samuel's hair. Desert brought us together. We just had wisdom to listen. Later, as the celebration wound down and families drifted to their dwellings, Clara stood alone for a moment. The eagle feather's weight felt significant in her hair. She touched the turquoise necklace at her throat, Joseph's first gift, worn smooth by years of living. From New York drawing rooms to Apache wiki-ups, from corsets and calling cards to buckskin and birthing poles, from a woman defined by a man's rejection to a woman defined by her own choices. Not a journey she could have imagined, but one she wouldn't trade for any alternative. Come to bed, stubborn woman, Joseph called softly. Dawn comes early, and Riverstone will wake hungry. Clara smiled, taking one last look at the stars. Same stars that had witnessed her lowest moment now watched over her greatest joy. The universe had a strange sense of humor, but perhaps wisdom too. She entered the wiki-up where her family waited, Samuel already half asleep, mumbling about tomorrow's adventures, River Stone beginning to fuss for his next feeding, Joseph holding blankets open in welcome. Home. Not a place but a feeling. Not perfect but real. It was more than enough. It was everything. The eagle feather caught moonlight as she settled beside her husband, their children safe between them. Outside, coyotes sang the ancient songs. Inside, a white woman who'd found her place in Apache hearts closed her eyes and smiled. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. It always did. But tonight, Clara Hunts the Storm was exactly where she belonged. Thank you all for listening to this story of love, courage, and finding home in the most unexpected places. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Leave a comment below, and let's share our thoughts on Clara's incredible journey. If you enjoyed this tale from the Wild West, please subscribe to Wild West Night. Hit that like button, and don't forget to press the hype button to help more people discover these stories of the American frontier. Your support helps bring these forgotten voices to life. Until next time, partners, keep riding toward your own horizons.